Okay, all set?
Good.
I'll start with the intro. Julie Feeney is a composer, singer, orchestrator, songwriter, and producer. In her native Ireland, she's a household name and has won numerous awards for her music, but she's also performed in the US and drawn rave reviews in the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and elsewhere, especially for her originality and theatricality. The Huffington Post called her a weird and wonderful Irish import, and we're thrilled to have Julie Feeney here, virtually at least, to talk with us for a few minutes today. And welcome, Julie.
Thanks so much, Mark. It's lovely to talk to you.
So I've watched some of your videos, and the costumes and props are very interesting. And we're recording this in the evening now, and you look very interesting yourself tonight. Very nice. And I'm wondering, is this dressing for a typical evening in? Check some emails, have a snack before bedtime, watch a little TV, that sort of thing?
No. Well, funnily enough, I'm not even doing the watching TV thing in the evening like most people, because I have two small children. So I haven't done that regular, normal adult thing in 7 years. But no, I actually am using the time a lot to try out different things for myself, for comfort and that. I want to get a new kind of raft of things, and this is a great time to kind of try things out and see how they fit and that kind of thing. It depends where I am. If I'm going somewhere, this is a Joanne Hines little neck piece. It's really handy. She's a designer from Galway, from Tuam in Galway, and it depends. You know, like sometimes you'll do something. You won't necessarily always dress up.
Okay. Yeah. Getting to your song, Dear John. In the music video for it, your music video, there's a lot of old-timey romantic imagery. It's in sepia tones, and at one point you were seen paging through a very old photo album. So is there a specific story or inspiration behind the song?
So the song Dear John is actually a letter from my grandfather to, it's a letter from me to him. It's me writing him a letter. They would, I did a lot of research on my family tree, and I found out that my grandparents would be, my neighbor who I was researching with said they'd be waiting on a moonlit night. They'd just wait for a moonlit night. And then if the moon was out, they'd go cycling and they'd go to a neighbor's house for, we'd call it a spread, which meant tea, cake, buns, you know, the kind of a lot of bakery kind of items. And there would be lots of stories and listening to the radio, you know, all of that would have happened. So I just was taken by that image, waiting on a moonlit night. And I just imagined them in the moonlight, and I just thought I'd write a song and kind of get into their dream, and their kind of dream and into my dream. And where I'm actually now, where I am now, is Galway, where they were from, you know, only a few miles over, like half a mile from here. So it just came to me, just waiting on a moonlit night, straight away, waiting on a moonlit night. Oh, it just came to me, and the song came to me in 5 different parts, and I didn't know whether I would split them or put them together. And I liked so my mother has Alzheimer's and I care for her, and I wanted to kind of ask her opinion on a few things, you know, before as it developed further. And I just said, I played them all to her, and I said, what do you think? Would I put them on? She said, yeah, they go very well together, you know, which was nice that she was sort of part of it, you know, in a way. So yeah, it's the imagery. So then when we made the music video, which was basically, we had an actor, a good friend of mine, playing my grandmother, and John Kelly, who's a famed broadcaster here. He's an excellent broadcaster. He's the creme de la creme broadcaster. John Kelly actually played my grandfather in the video. So that was really nice. I just asked him, I thought, you know, would he do it? And he did. So he's cycling on the bicycle. And then all the photographs are actually of my people in my family from both sides. I found old photographs and we put it into an old book. And then the production company, Epic Productions in Cork, they did a really beautiful job on it. And they even had the moving image in the book, you know. So that book, I still have that book. It's a beautifully made book. We had, and just the whole clocks, and they did a brilliant team. There was an excellent stylist person who was also brilliant with props, you know, that kind of creative kind of crew. They were amazing. Mary Jennifer was her name, yeah. But so yeah, it was a great crew. So they really worked with the idea. They worked so well. They were a brilliantly talented bunch, very resourceful. I mean, they sourced so many amazing scenes and everything. They just totally got into the dream with me, you know.
It's a lovely video, and we really enjoyed working on the song.
Brilliant, yeah.
What was it like for you to adapt this song, originally a solo piece featuring you, for a full chorus?
Funnily, with that piece, I recorded it, and I had strings already, a session. It was just a 3-hour session, and I had the instruments, and then I first then had to adapt it to an American ensemble. It was a 8 or 12 piece American ensemble for the first live performance at New York, in New York Irish Arts Centre. And then after that, I adapted it for orchestra. I think the biggest jump for me wasn't just that song. The biggest jump for me in adapting any song was my very first album, when I got asked to orchestrate my very first album for a 70-piece orchestra. I had never done it before, apart from a course that I had actually done, a kind of a practical course, a 5-week course. That particular jump was much bigger for me, because I made my first album. I orchestrated every single note for performance. That was in 2006, I think, or 7 maybe. So then orchestrating Dear John for an orchestra was just more fun. It was actually fun. It wasn't like a big, the ones that are tricky, I find it more difficult scaling down rather than scaling up sometimes. Particularly one of the songs on that album, Julia, has all these shimmering strings, and I hate leaving out some of the notes. I can't bear it. So that kind of scaling down, I find, can be harder. So I actually went for the scaling down thing, and I did 2 years of performance with just one musician, because I wanted to play with it and see, like, play with the elasticity of it and see how it could work. And it actually absolutely does work. It's a different thing, you know. And sometimes it's nice to have more space and have less, you know. So orchestrating Dear John was really fun, because there's so many lines, so many different melodies in it. I actually had a blast doing that, and kind of did it. It wasn't that it was easy. There were lots of options, but they were fun options. You know, it wasn't like, oh no, I can't bear to listen to that now because I have to leave out something, or, you know.
A 70-piece orchestra, you said?
Yeah, I've actually orchestrated. Subsequently, I orchestrated all 3 albums. I've done a lot of orchestral. I orchestrated. So the first orchestra was the Ulster Orchestra, and the second one was the RTE Concert Orchestra. And then my own orchestra, just the Judy Feeney, I don't know, we called it something or other, I can't remember. But the RTE Concert Orchestra have performed all of my 3 albums. I orchestrated the 3 albums. And it was in the National Concert Hall, yeah. So I've done that mostly because I do them in batches. It's not really the song, yeah. It's just kind of more, oh my goodness, I have to get this submitted, because they need to have it way ahead of time so that they can put it into the library and label it and whatnot, you know. So, but orchestrating is really fun.
Can you tell us a little bit about your songwriting process, what that's like, and does it usually happen in the same way?
For each different album, I have a different technique. The first one was pretty much whip 'em, gather 'em, the songs were in my head, and I just kind of did it very organically with no real pattern. I put it together in 2 weeks, these things that were going around in my head. The second album, I had a very, very rigorous process where I went away for 6 weeks. And I had a huge number of thought copies, and I condensed them all into a smaller amount. And then I like had sheets of paper, and I tore separately all the different themes, and I had a big table, and I had, you know, love, jealousy, on different piles. And then I made new prose bits out of that, out of each of those piles. It's a very kind of indulgent way, but I think it was just, it's kind of, as a kind of perfectionist, I wanted to make sure that I had a I was condensing everything that I wanted to say. So that was the second album. The third album, then I kind of developed my process a bit more and just let a little bit more breath in and let a little bit more chance in. But I'd still never, ever, ever go into a studio and make up words as we were recording. I couldn't imagine doing that. I know that half the pop world does that, but I just couldn't. So for this album now, I have a different technique again. It's a little bit more focused, the one that I'm working on now. So it's hard to describe it yet because I want to see how the rest of it goes. So I definitely think each album I have a different technique. And then the orchestration happens after. I've spent a lot of time on words. Words are really important. I work on words separately, and then I work on music separately, and then the orchestration, and then the reorchestrations if you're going to have an 8-piece ensemble, or if you're going to be asked to do it with an orchestra or whatever, you know.
Well, speaking of 8-piece ensembles to 70-piece orchestras, our director, David Baranowski, feels that there is a connection of sorts between Dear John and the other music we're performing in this concert, which is Vivaldi. And it's been about 3 centuries between Vivaldi and Feeney, but I'm wondering if you yourself feel any sort of connection in that same way.
I definitely have a connection with Irish traditional music and Baroque music. And there is a big connection really between Irish traditional music tunes and Baroque music. There's a lot of musicians do kind of crossover things that connect the two. And I wasn't sitting, I know I mentioned earlier that I don't really sit down and watch TV, but I had The Sound of Music on, you know, The Sound of Music.
Sure.
And I was just listening to it, and I was just thinking, I think my music definitely is European influenced, you know. And then I began to think back, I wonder, where does that come from, you know? And I know that, I think, yeah, you can be raised with something, you have memories with it, but I think there has to be some kind of a deep, more inner thing, that it's a DNA thing, I think. For me, there's definitely a European thing to the writing. Yeah, I love soaring tunes, I love counter melodies, and I love things coming in all over the place. And I do, when I write a song, I hear all of those, you know, that's how I work. And yeah, I mean, it's interesting, yeah, it's connected to the Baroque thing, because it's definitely, even though I'm not a traditional Irish music player, and people never really kind of even believe that, the writing is heavily influenced by the phrasing, because a lot of Irish traditional tunes, their phrasing is much longer or shorter. Like, it's not just 8 bars. It'll go along like maybe to 12. It'll keep going. You know, there's a push and a pull all the time. So it is interesting that Davis, you know, links it to the Baroque music. You know.
So you mentioned a couple of different influences. When did you first know that you wanted to be a musician, and how did you get started?
Well, since I was very, very small, I was always putting people into different groups and getting them to sing in harmony. Since I was like about 4 or 5, I was always, you know, directing. And I was always absolutely hooked. I mean, I was constantly, but I think I had a big separation between being a performer and knowing that I wanted to be a composer. I knew from a very early age I wanted to be a composer, but then I didn't follow the really strict traditional route. Well, I did. I studied with Louis Andriessen briefly in The Hague, in the Conservatory, and Den Haag, The Hague in Holland. But I didn't want to completely continue on that route alone. I think the art of writing a pop song is something that I'm still intrigued by that. And I'm writing an opera as well, but that's a whole other thing. So when did I want it? That's the question you actually asked me. I'm gone on further than that. I think that Yeah, from a very early age. But oh yeah, I was saying about performance. I knew I wanted to be a performer, but I think the inhibitions of my upbringing and just kind of held me back in a way. Like I wasn't, like the way Lady Gaga just kind of sprang. I came out and she was just, here I am. I was always quite reserved and had those kind of inhibitions. And it was after my second album, I realized, and I know now, performance. I love performing. I absolutely love it. There's an electricity on stage. You can go places in your head. I'm actually doing a little bit of acting now as well, and I'm realizing the same thing. It's the performance gene, So I think, when did I want to do it? God, like from a very, very early age. But I also wanted to be a psychologist. I wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to travel the world, and I kind of have done all of those things as well. So it's always been there, and there's always a conflict for any musician. It's not where's the permanent pensionable job, and that doesn't really exist. But I think if you have a passion, you have to really keep trying. You have to just keep going.
That's great. Early in your career, you were a professional choir singer.
Yeah.
And of course, that demands that you as an individual blend into the whole and follow exactly the conductor's lead. And in contrast, your own music is fiercely original. So was it a challenge for you back then to rein in that original side of yourself?
I found that my participation as a professional choral singer with Chamber Choir Ireland, at the time they were called the National Chamber Choir, but they're now called Chamber Choir Ireland, was possibly the most informative. Well, in a way, I also performed with Anuna, and I did loads of other things as well. Like every ensemble that was going, I was in it, But I think so. It hugely informed my music. I mean, you're sitting Tuesday morning at 10:15, 17 singers singing quarter tone music, and you're picking a note from somebody over there. The education and the fine tuning of your ears. It was just exhilarating, and we worked with the Brazilian conductor Celso Antunes, and he was just absolutely brilliant, and some incredible world-class guest conductors every 2 weeks, and you performed every 2 weeks, and it was such a high level. It is still, it's a phenomenal choir. They produce beautiful work, and that's a Chamber Choir Ireland. And then Anuna, of course, that's gorgeous as well. That was different because you don't read the music; you had to do it by memory. And I think the director, Michael McLean of Anuna, has really got that, and he's understood that from an early time, early on in their development as a group, that it has to be internalized, so I don't think that only fired my music making on more. It was very, very rigorous, and you had to stand like this all the time, and very, everything from your breaths take in to all of that. Very, very, very constrained, but the music was just so stunning that we performed. I didn't find that, it just helped me. I was actually in that choir when I made my first album. Before I made the leap, I was in there. I don't know if music, because the repertoire we were doing all the best music ever written, and it was just a joy rather than a constraint to be in it, and a privilege and an honor. And I'm so happy that I was that for a living,
When you talked earlier about the experience of performing, and again now performing in choirs, it was about the experience of performing, but you wear a lot of other hats as well. At the end of the Dear John video, for example, it says music and lyrics composed, orchestrated, conducted, sung, and produced by Julie. You've also had your own independent record label. So that's a lot of different roles, and it sounds like a lot of work. Is it ever a challenge for you to find your way back to that kind of magic experience that performing can give you?
Well, definitely I got burnt out from the kind of management side of it. That's it ends up being very soul destroying. It's you know, and I'm absolutely over that now. I do not want to manage myself anymore. I have no interest in it, and I'm actively actually looking for a manager, you know. So well, I mean, see, for me, the writing, composing, producing, that's all kind of one, to be honest. I didn't engineer it, but I did do a lot of the editing and the comping. The comping means which take you always end up taking the first take. That's what I find anyway. Like you sing the song, and then you do 4 takes, and then you go, the first one was the best one. So I did the comping, like I would listen, but it was like I can get my way around Pro Tools. I can do what I need to do. And obviously Sibelius for my orchestration, I'll do all of that. I'll type in every single note. I don't play it in because you end up getting really bad scores that way. It's if you type in every note and actually put it where you want, it's much, you get the score you want. So really for me, it's all just one. It's just writing. I mean, I would consider myself as a writer performer. I'm definitely going more into the writing of words now. I'm working more longer form in words. I want to write longer things than songs. You know, I'm working on making, I don't know what they are yet, but I'm doing a whole other thing at the moment. But so for me, it just feels like one thing. It's just like I have the sound of the thing in my head. I know what it is, and I just do whatever I have to do to get that sound, to get that out. So I write, and I mean, produce, to me, in the way I do it is just I can hear things in terms of the sonic world, in terms of overtones, or you know, what things are blending together. Like I actually got a new piano, and it's really interesting. It's sampled. I won't say the brand of it or anything, but there's 2 different pianos on it, and one is like sharper than the other, and it is really, it's sort of, I don't know, I've been looking online to see if there's anyone else said anything about this, but they haven't. So I don't know about that. But anyway, so I'm very interested in the sonic side of things as well. So that's really the producing is just more, for me, it's just what the way you want it to sound. Yeah, so once you cut out all the management stuff, I mean, the whole social media side of it, I did all of that, but I just find it now, I just, oh God, I can't be telling random people about what I'm doing and then be doing the thing as well. Like if you're actually writing and working, I just find it this is just a bizarre thing that has happened now, that you have to be outward when you need to be inward. Like you need to be inside in this world, and you have to live there and stay there for an X amount of time. But now, like, yeah, this thing on the table, like you have to now document and tell everybody. So I'm trying to navigate my way around that, where I don't have to do that, and just get excited and talk about it when it's done. I don't mind talking about it when it's done, like now, but I find it very hard to talk about stuff in the middle of it. It's really strange.
The last year has been a weird and not so wonderful time for many people. How have you been getting through it, and what's next for you in your career?
Well, my album is, I'm working on that. I really want to have that finished when everything is ready to go again. I want to finish Bird, and then I'm working on a number of other things, and there's a few kind of album projects that will just be pretty straightforward to do. They're not all actually original. And then I'm working on my writing, the word side of it. And I'm working, it's kind of a big project. It's sort of it's a hybrid of things that I'm putting together, but it's starting with the writing, and there's the music elements in it as well. And it's just sort of like a seed of an idea that has started, and I want to continue with it. So I thought that this was a good time to, everybody keeps saying, oh, you're so theatrical, and the performance side of things and all that. So I decided to kind of actually go and take some formal classes and learn more about theatre. I mean, I love theatre, I go to so much theatre, and actually learn about it. So I've done that, and I'm halfway through all of that, which has been really brilliant, all on Zoom, you know. But I love that, and I did work before Christmas with Phoebe on TV. It's called Saulu 2020, and I was actually acting in it and singing. And then I worked with Phoebe again on a production where I was acting dancing, singing. Now, when I say dancing, I don't mean, J-Lo. I mean, basically the choreography with this wonderful choreographer. He's just amazing. Owen, I don't know his surname, but we worked with him for 2 weeks. It was very intense. And I get really exhilarated from that. So my work more, there are some projects that are just slightly different to albums. But I'm really excited, and I got a new piano, which is amazing because I've returned back to playing the piano like I used to do every day when I was a child. But then when I went into being a composer and orchestrator, you're sitting at Sibelius a lot and you're just playing the chords. You're not really like sitting down and playing, which I'm really loving. I like the way that I've kind of gone back to that.
So, an album, writing, acting, theater classes, new piano. You're keeping busy.
Keeping very busy, and then I family commitments are now a factor that I didn't have before with previous albums. I took a step back to look after family matters, including being a carer, and that's been the richest. That's been such a rich experience. I feel I'm again privileged that I've been lucky enough to be able to do that as a carer of my mother, and that's ongoing. That's very, very inspiring. Obviously, it's really exhausting and difficult, particularly during a pandemic, because you have to be cocooning properly. But the weird world that the pandemic pushed me into personally has weirdly helped me to get more creative. I got a lot of that new kind of creativity came into me, channeled from somewhere.
Wonderful. Well, we look forward to seeing what comes out next.
Great.
One final question, and I hope this doesn't get me in too much trouble, but you have performed in the past with Hudson Chorale's new director, David Baranowski. He played keyboards in your band. So we're all kind of wondering, any good stories? What can you tell us about this gentleman? Because he may have told a story or two about you.
I know, yeah. I was wondering about that when you said that to me, that he was. So I think David is as you see, as you imagine. He is exactly as you imagine. Whatever you think he is, he's that. Putting it mildly, he's such a funny guy. He's such good fun.
I'm funny, yeah.
He's brilliant. He's absolutely brilliant. He's brilliant humor. In terms of playing with me, he played on nearly every show that I did in the States. He was just a rock. It really was a rock. And he hopefully will be in the future again. An absolute rock, an absolute pro, brilliant musician, amazing guy to have in the ensemble. Just very level-headed when he needed to be. He can obviously be as cracked as a brush, as we would say, in terms of the fun matters. But just a brilliant musician and an amazing asset to any ensemble, because he's such a brilliant musician as well. Just fantastic. And then he happens to have an absolutely amazing wife that I'm very friendly with, and she was another kind of blessing that arrived in. She's a phenomenal musician herself, and
she's done a duet for us for our concert.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. No, she's amazing. She's got what a voice. So that's been a beautiful kind of chapter in my involvement in my performance in America, that I've managed to pick up these two guys, and that we're pretty stuck to one another at this stage.
Well, we look forward to you making it back here, and we'll be watching anxiously.
I cannot wait to get back here. I really cannot wait, and I really, I love America, and I just, I'm like it is for the whole world. I'm just so sad for to see the pandemic, hitting there. I'm just thinking of all the lovely people that I know there, and really looking forward to bright, hopeful times in the future. And I cannot wait to be back again and to meet everybody and perform as much as possible, because I love performing in the States.
Well, we can't wait to have you. So Julie, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, and especially for arranging your song, Dear John, for Hudson Chorale. I wanted to mention for our audience, if you'd like to experience more of Julie's work, the place to find it is juliefeeney.com. You can also search on YouTube. There's some of the US shows from the Irish Arts Center, a couple of videos there, and other things. But on the website, juliefeeney.com, you can access her 3 albums, see fascinating music videos with evocative costumes and props, and lots more. It's been a great pleasure, Julie, and thank you again for your time.
Thank you so much, Mark. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for chatting.